Oh, that was awesome. That just blew my mind, man.
And I didn't think of that until just talking to you. So thanks to you, you've sort of lit it up on my brain.
It's all good. I guess you probably wouldn't mind me saying, and you were just saying that we've both had a couple of down days, and that you have been sort of taking things out of your life that, affect your mood. And you've kind of gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I've deleted TikTok. I don't scroll Instagram anymore. I haven't been drinking much for 6 to 12 months. Like, what else can I remove? And discussing that sometimes you just have down days, and sometimes there's things that happen in our bodies, like chemical imbalances, can naturally happen to people, happens more to people with mental health issues, but can just naturally, you can sometimes just wake up and have a shitty day. Maybe you just didn't have the best sleep. You might have had dreams that have been subconsciously impacting you, blah, blah, blah. But for me, what I've found has been really helpful for me has been the meditation piece. And it's because grounding myself it's like an anchor in a world where you often feel like you're just kind of zooming around and go, 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 go. For me, when I meditate twice a day, it's like dropping an anchor and just settling back in to myself. And that really helps me remember that above all else, I'm a spiritual being, and that's what's most important. And to me, that grounding back into a spiritual sense of self, or I guess if we wanted to go deeper, like the lack of sense of self, and the connectedness to everything, makes me realize that all of the material stuff doesn't matter that much. And that stops me from stressing out about things that I don't need to stress out about, stops me scrolling Instagram so much because I just don't really care about the material side of life. So for me, meditation definitely helps with having consistency of mood.
I was on YouTube the other day, yesterday, and there was this video. It was I tried psychedelics for the first time. And the guy was in Netherlands, he tried psychedelics. And he talked about how after a few hours, he'd gone to this state where he sort of just sat down on the room, crossed his legs, and was just embracing the sunlight going through the windows. And there was this sort of not ego death, but his ego was gone, where he was able to experience the sort of light as a kid again. He felt like he was a kid, and there was no responsibility and weight on his shoulders. And then listening to that, I was like, wow, I do remember being a kid running around the house, cycling around the neighborhood with no worries at all, no worries about income, where I'm going to get dinner, where I'm going to get food, because my mum sort of handled all those things. She took all the responsibilities off my shoulders, and I was able to be a kid. And then when I was cycling around the neighborhood, I was telling you earlier, I sort of try to get to that state, and I was just looking at the beautiful sunset, the beautiful sky, and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. But it was beautiful because I was able to just let go of the fact that I haven't planned tomorrow, let go of the fact that I have meetings tomorrow, let go of the fact that I have some work to clear up when I do get home, let go of the fact that it's 7 p.m, I have to go home and I have to get some work done. That's a downside of going out, but I just let that all go, and I was able to really feel really happy, and it was just this weird pure happiness feeling. And I'm trying to tap into that now as I'm sharing this story, where I'm not thinking of what's to come for the rest of the day, what's for the next week, and it's just bliss.
That's that. I mean, you've essentially just told everyone the entire secret to living a spiritual, enlightened life. It's all about how you it makes me smile listening to you say that, because it's so funny, because that's all it is. It's I have a terrible memory, and I'm actually really proud of having a terrible memory, because I don't hold on to stuff. I don't know. I probably don't think about the future anywhere near as much as I should. And hence I'm a 29-year-old man with I have no idea what I'm doing with my life, because think enough about the future, and I don't think enough about the past. I have, but I find that whenever I'm worried or whenever I'm anxious or feeling depressed, I'm usually depressed because of something that has happened in the past, and I'm usually anxious because of something I'm worried about happening or not happening in the future. And that's exactly what it is. And I'm rereading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle at the moment, and something that in a chapter I literally listened to on Audible yesterday, it was about letting go of the past and the future and just living in the present. And you've just enunciated perfectly what it means to have a moment of enlightenment. So that one moment where you were cycling around, you saw the sunset, you weren't thinking about the meetings you had, you weren't thinking about the job you had to do, you weren't thinking about like the weekend that was, you were just there appreciating the moment. And in that moment, nothing else existed. All there was what was happening right then and there. And actually, that's all that's ever happening. That's all you can ever do is live the moment that is currently happening. And if you need to, you can use that moment to plan, to look at your day tomorrow and say, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes now planning my day tomorrow. And you be present while you're doing that, and you feel the same bliss while you're planning your day tomorrow. But as soon as you finish planning your day tomorrow, let it go. See ya. It's done. You can sit there. You can spend a whole day planning your next 12 months of business. Like, what are you going to do with your business? What's your strategy for the next 12 months? Again, be entirely present in that planning process, and you're going to enjoy it so much more. You're going to get so much more out of it. You're going to be way more creative in the way that you like build that strategy, because creativity doesn't come from here. It comes from here. It comes from like being in tune with the present moment and just intuitively working your way through things. So it's learning how to use your mind as a tool and then putting it down when you don't need it, rather than your mind using you as a tool for its own like ego manifestations or like whatever. It sounds a little bit loopy, but really it all just comes back to just being present in the moment, doing what you're doing with complete focus and presence of mind, and not letting all of the bullshit from the future and the past like cloud that.
Super cool. And then when you were talking about like the short-term memory thing, in that video, he talked about how in the first sort of, before he got into that blissful state, he went through the period where all these memories and thoughts were just rushing through his head, and he was just writing everything down. He was writing everything down really quickly because he was scared to lose it. But then he realized that once he wrote everything down and he was able to just let go, that's when the blissful state occurred. And I do realize I do have those times of anxiety where I come up with an idea in the shower, I'm naked, the pen is in another room, and I'm just trying to keep that memory alive, and I'm trying to keep remembering it so that after I turn off the shower, dry up, run into this office, write it down before I forget it. But that whole 5-minute period, I'm just in anxiety.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think there's two things there, right? The first thing is, so as soon as you come up with that idea, before you can get pen to pad so that you don't forget it, there's like a period of like, oh my God, I can't forget this. And in that moment, you're thinking about the future of needing to get the pen to pad. I think one of the really cool lessons of that is also that like the way you came up with that idea was super organic. Like you were in the shower, you weren't trying to think of a cool business idea or like a strategy or a tactic for your business. You were just having a shower and it just popped up. That's when we have our best ideas. And I actually don't like, I think you've done exactly what you were supposed to do there. The pen wasn't there. You needed to get to the pen. I think from there, if you wanted to lower your anxiety at that point, I think remembering that you're only a couple of minutes away from a pen and trusting yourself to be able to hold that thought about that idea for 3 or 4 minutes so that you can get to the pen would help alleviate the anxiety. But I think that what you've done in that state and that space is a really like, I mean, my problem is I wouldn't do that. My problem is I'd sit in the shower, come up with a really cool idea. I'd be like, oh my God, light bulb. And then I'd just be like, and then I'd be like, all right, I'm just going to continue having my shower, keep having the shower. And by the time I get out of the shower, I'm like, fuck, what was that idea again? Damn it. So I think like the way that you deal with that idea coming up is like really cool. And I would actually just encourage you to try and like back yourself and remember like that you do have the process in place to remember what that idea is and get it to pen and paper, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. And also like to just acknowledge the creativity that comes up just in a period of like, I would argue that when you were showering, all you were thinking about was showering. And then out of like, where do good ideas come from? Sometimes, yeah, they do come from an idea brainstorming session, but the best idea brainstorming sessions also happen when you're in free flow, you know?
Very, very true. Like I've been sort of doing this thing where I've been like subconsciously implanting things into my brain. Like for example, I want to figure out how to hire good salespeople. So just think of that. And then when I'm in shower, I just think of that. And then randomly throughout the day, the solution to what I'm thinking pops up. And I think that's something that people don't do enough, where when they have a problem, they just leave it as a problem. They don't think about what's a possible solution. If they can't think of a solution, they just give up then and there. But I sort of just think of the problem over time. And usually I always come up with a solution. And the solution may or may not work. It may come in one day. It might come in 7-day time. But we're just implanting all these problems. And I got this from my friend I was asking him an advice about business and stuff. And it was like, hey, Andy, like, you sort of do consulting as a job, like you help people with their problems. Why don't you just consult yourself? And for some reason, I never thought of it. Like it was so simple. I never thought of it like that. And all of a sudden, I just started consulting myself, being like, okay, if I was a client that had the same problem, what advice would I give to that client? And all of a sudden, things just like went uphill.
You totally hacked yourself. It's definitely, I think that what's important there is that when you consult, you've created a process that allows yourself to think both logically and laterally. And that's important because what I was gonna say next is because it is cool when ideas just come to you like a flash. It's happened to me. I write poetry, and I've just started a little poetry business, and part of that is writing poems for corporate clients. So, you know, I've got like this first client that I was writing for, and she wanted me to write a poem about her wine. And so I had no idea what the poem was going to be about, but I'd asked the questions. I understood like a couple of the kind of brand guidelines that I sort of had to write to. I understood the brief, and I was meditating one day, and the first 2 lines of the poem just popped into my head. And that was one of the times that I was kind of like you. I was like, oh my God, like I had the first lines, and then I sort of came up with the first like paragraph, and I was like, I cannot forget this. So as soon as I finished my meditation, I went straight to my phone and I typed in like that. And then from there, the whole poem just sort of unraveled. And sometimes that happens, but sometimes when you're in a pressure situation, like when you're consulting, you need to come up with a process that helps you be creative sort of on the spot a little bit. And one of the things that I've found works there is the idea of trawling rather than catching fish. So when you trawl, you're just getting thousands of fish. Fishing, you're just trying to pluck out like the perfect fish, right? And when you trawl, you just come up with as many bad ideas as you can. Like every single thought that comes into your head is an idea. You just write it down. And eventually the thought process that you're taking through all these bad ideas will either be like so bad or so funny that you stop thinking so much. And then all of a sudden, like the good ideas will start naturally sort of coming. That was something that is like kind of irrelevant to what you just said, but I was thinking about it, so I said it. With the consulting yourself, I'm actually really curious to know how was that process the first time you tried it? So from consulting other people, because it's the same thing, it's the same with relationship advice, right? No one knows what to do when they're in a relationship and they hit it like a weird spot. And then you ask your friends, and your friends give you the perfect answer, and you realize that's exactly what you would have said to anyone else as well, but you just can't seem to give yourself that advice. The first time you ever consulted yourself, like what did that feel like?
I sort of did a thing where I was like talking to myself on camera. So I was just recording myself, or I was like, I split myself into two parts. I don't
That
do
would
this
be a cool
anymore.
podcast episode.
Yeah. I split myself into two parts, and I put myself in one side where I was like, okay, so right now I'm trying to find a solid appointment setup. I've tried a bunch of things. I've hired from the Philippines. I'm looking at sort of sales groups where there's people who would do commission only sales, but I haven't been able to find someone that is like the right fit. Okay, now I jump on the other seat. Okay, so I think right now I've tried hiring from the Philippines, and the appointment setters there aren't sort of what I'm looking for. I haven't personally tried hiring on Facebook groups personally. On Facebook groups, I've hired salespeople and that didn't work out, but maybe appointment setters would work out. So maybe what I need to do now is try put up a job listing on these Facebook groups for appointment setters, see what I catch, and see if there's any good appointment setters in these Facebook groups. Now, if that doesn't work, then the next phase is to go through sort of my network, search up and talk to people who are doing what I'm doing and they have salespeople, and see where they get their salespeople and ask for advice and try what they sort of suggest. So all of a sudden, now taking a step back, I actually didn't know what I was like, that's a problem I'm dealing with currently, but I didn't know the solution to it. So now I know my next steps. I just built it out with you live, and I should be doing this more often, but it's a bit tiring sort of playing two characters.
I think you've also decided to have this conversation with the right person as well, because sales is kind of what I do, and sales processes is what I do. But so the other question I would ask you is, when you're looking for an appointment setter, what are the traits, and what are the, I guess, like what is the role description of an appointment setter, and what are the traits that you require from them? And that helps you get a better understanding of what you're going to be looking for when you are going to your network, you are going to the Facebook groups. The second thing I would say then is think about what you can do to make that process easier, or help like the process of the appointment setting easier for that person, such that it widens the range of people that you can hire. So for instance, I hired an appointment setter when I was working with my last startup, but what I had done was I had gone through the process myself like thousands of times, and I'd sort of tweaked the copy that I was using to message people on LinkedIn and things like that, such that when I hired an appointment setter, I already had all the copy for them. I actually literally gave them my LinkedIn details, so it was coming from, the pitch was coming from me to the people I wanted to pitch to, because I had the LinkedIn profile like VP of growth, blah, blah, blah. So like it looked better coming from me. So essentially then all I needed was someone who was trustworthy to get through the amount of volume that I needed to get through, to then be able to produce the leads that I needed them to produce. And it was less about them having to know specific sales skills and stuff, because I knew that whoever I hired as an appointment setter, I was going to know how to do that stuff better. So I thought, okay, why don't I do that myself, such that when I'm looking for an appointment setter, it's not so much the quality of their, like what they're able to do. I can actually go and find someone who wants to learn how to do this stuff, show them how I've done it, so they're learning something, and it widens the net of the people that I can hire, because I don't need to find like a specifically sort of perfect, salesperson. So little things I'd be looking into, what are the sort of traits, the personality that you're looking for, and also the clear JD, and then looking at the JD you've written and said, okay, is there something that I can take off this job description, because I can do it and I can automate it for them, such that it's not to make their job easier, it's to widen the available net of people that could perform that role.
Now, my sort of current bottleneck is with the appointment setting, sort of like cold calling, but it's
on
not
the phone.
cold calling, but it's warm leads, people who are interested. So they're like, hey, my name's Andy. Do you recall putting your details down to learn about e-commerce and dropshipping? Mm-hmm. Yes, no. And I found that a lot of the appointment setters, they just sound untrustworthy, that they just didn't sound.
Sure.
And to be like me or you, like if someone's able to conversate, be able to answer certain objections, and just be like a cool general person. Most of those people are, one, they're scarce. Two, they're usually already doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Three, if they do sales, they're going to be really expensive. Everyone else is just like, the everyday, I don't know, boring person.
I would write those things down. I would write those three things down, or like if you've already got them in your head, because I think that it's important to also know the challenges to why you're struggling to get someone. But yeah, no, I totally get it. It is very different when you're talking warm leads. So is the process they've come in cold, they're now, are they an inbound lead? Like they've come to you from like different sources, so you already know they're interested?
So it'll be like a Facebook ad. They'll be like, hey guys, if you want to learn how to start your own online business, swipe up or put your details below. They put in their first name, last name, email, phone number. They then are put into our email flow. They also get sent to like another longer video where they can learn more about us. So they're showing intent. Sure.
What I think like an interesting consideration that may not work for you, but could be an interesting way to think about this is that when someone's put in a name, phone number, email, they've shown intent, but and like from those leads that come through, if you're going to manage those leads from start to finish, what is your conversion rate to pull them through into a paid subscriber or like a paid customer?
When I personally do the appointment setting, every hour I'll probably get one qualified booking. And within that hour, I might call maybe 60 phone numbers. And from the 60, I might get one booking. And obviously that list of 60, I could go through that again the next day, again and again and again, because people don't pick up. People don't pick up,
yeah.
So I get one booking. And usually with the bookings, roughly around 60% of people show up to the actual call. And out of the 60% of people that show up, roughly 50% qualify if I'm the person sort of selling them. So that's the process.
Is it worth having like a pre-qual process, like pre-qual stage of the process whereby you're kind of saying, okay, so people have shown intent, but with my time, I need to focus on a lead who maybe has shown a bit more than intent. So could there be a middle step here where there's a bit less requirement to actually sell on the appointment setter's behalf? And so basically, because there's so many people that aren't picking up the phone, there's so many people that might just pop in their details and then go, oh, actually, maybe not super, super keen. So could there be a filtering process between giving details and between you picking up the phone where the appointment setter? So okay, here's a bit of an insight. So my sister works for a bank, works in like mortgage home loans and things like that. What they do is they have someone exactly like this working in somewhere like the Philippines or something like that, where it's a pre-qualification process. So they're basically gone, okay, we've got your details. This person is now calling them up purely only to ask them a series of questions. You can design that questionnaire however you want. Ideally, designing that questionnaire to get, one, more information, and two, drive more demand. So the way you ask the questions creates more intent and I guess brand value for your brand in the eyes of the customer. So it's kind of like it's a survey, it's a questionnaire, it's compiling, question.
And then with those mortgage, like if, hey, I'm looking for a mortgage and then I get this call from this person from the Philippines, are they going to just are most people already losing trust right off the bat, like right off the gate with this bank, or like wanting to hang up, hey, I'm busy?
That is something, okay, so that is something I know two people in mortgage broking. One of them is a very, they basically give loans out to people that really need the money. So those, though, I think they use the Filipino organizer, they use a BPO in the Philippines to manage that. Obviously, those people really want money, so their kind of need for the product is really high. So they'll stay on. now that you've brought this up, it's a really good question. Maybe the pre-qual is done elsewhere for my sister's bank, because it's like a proper sort of bank. It's not just a mortgage lending company. So yeah, no, you could be right in that there may be a loss of trust once they hear someone picking up in the Philippines.
To answer your previous question,
yeah,
about the filter. So what the current traditional route, which is a bit saturated, is people who are interested, they watch this sort of BSL, this sort of 30-minute, 40-minute video on what they have to offer. And then if they're interested, they can book in a call directly to the salespeople. And then the booking would be like 10 questions. Name, why you're interested, what your income is, really long. And the pros is you don't need an appointment setter at all. It just goes straight to the salespeople. Now the con is, one, now your lead goes from $5 a phone number to like $100 per booking. Two, you have a much smaller list. Yes, it's more qualified, but it's much smaller and you can't really go through it again and again. Three, if you have someone not show up, so if you have a 50% show up rate, that means you've lost, every second person, you've lost $100 for that lead. So their like show up rate is also really, really difficult because they haven't talked to anyone. They just watch the video, filled out this 10-question thing, and there's a good chance they may not even show up. Now, that's sort of what everyone's doing. And I guess I've tried to do that, but it's really, really hard to get something to work when everyone else is doing it out there. So I've tried to take a different approach, and I don't know if I'm forcing this different approach to work or, well, technically, I've personally done my appointment setting sales. I've personally done it and it works.
Yeah.
I guess the concept is proven. It's like, how can I get someone to copy me? And I really like this because it's like not many people are doing this weird appointment setting, but then it is a bit longer and not orthodox.
But it gives you more chance of closing the lead because you're getting them on the phone with someone sooner. So the problem for you is not that you need to qualify them more. The problem, because that's actually the strategy you're taking. The strategy or the gamble you're taking is that you're a better chance of qualifying them and getting a sale by getting on the phone to them sooner. The problem is it's just so hard to find someone to get on the phone that's good at doing the job of converting the lead, because essentially what you need, if you, let's say you're working with that $5 to $100 ratio, you could afford to lose 80% more leads at those two rates and still close at a lower CPA than a lower CPA if you're picking up the phone earlier and you've proven that you can actually do it because you've done it. The answer to the question is just how do you, so it's exactly, I mean, we've gone full circle, but I've got so much more context now. We've fleshed out a few things, but it is that it's so hard to find someone that is going to do as good a job as you. I mean, unless you want to the first idea I come to is kind of pull out the checkbook and give him some equity, make it theirs. If you really wanted someone who is good, then you're looking to incentivize them long-term to be a part of the business. But even still, it can be hard to find the right fit. It's definitely really hard to find good salespeople. Because it's not easy, sales. It's not easy,
Most definitely. And then I think just talking back and forth, I think you're basically like a consultant, but I think it's hard to put yourself as a third party. If you really somehow separated yourself and looked at your own situation, I wouldn't be surprised if you gave yourself some really good advice.
Yeah, I most likely would. I think the problem for me has never been a lack of ideas or a lack of intelligence. It's always been, I don't mean that in I don't mean that in a way of kind of ego. I'm really clear. Like there's a couple of things that I'm good at, and I'm really clear there's some things I'm like exceptionally bad at. And like one thing like I was born with was like a bit of a brain. Like I'm not stupid, but I was like, so for me, it's self-belief, and it's the ability to be consistent and sort of not give up when the going gets tough. And that's where it can get challenging for me, because once I start to get into a bit of a negative headspace, I then lose the ability to think really critically and stuff like that. So it's not, yeah, I'm well aware where my strengths lie, and I'm also well aware of like why I still manage to fall over sometimes. And it's been like a real work in progress after the last 10 years to get better and better at sort of pushing through those tough periods, and then sort of came to the last startup I was working on and sort of just copped an absolute nightmare for 2 years that has felt like it's put me back at square one. Like I'm sort of back at the lack of belief struggle street that I've worked really hard to get away from, and now I'm sort of like just trying to build back up from square one in terms of that. For me everything is sort of mental. For me everything is having belief in myself, and I think that maybe means I shouldn't be an entrepreneur, but I can't really let go of it, because I don't think I can sit in one place and work a job, you know, I need the freedom to travel. And we were talking about this the other night.
Yeah, there's two things. Like I definitely want to jump into that mindset thing. But one thing about you that gave me just like a breath of fresh air was, I don't know, even this time over the last few years, like anytime I message someone, I might wait like a few hours or a day to get a response. If I'm messaging you, you're like getting back. I can tell the energy in the text, and there's like text back, but there's this no ego thing. Whereas I feel like every other person, I'm texting them, and then I could tell they're online, but they're trying to like show that they're busy, and I might get a response a few hours later. And you don't have this ego. Like even I just finished my day early, and I was like, hey, Mike, are you any chance free early and we can jump on this call early? And you're like, yeah, man, I'm ready to go. And it was just such a breath of fresh air, because everyone else is doing the opposite. They're like, no, I actually have some meetings. Let's stick to our scheduled time. And that's something I really like about you right off the gate.
It's funny when you say that, because it makes me feel like sometimes I need to be like, because that's what everyone gets taught. It's like the whole how to win friends and influence people / all these self-help books teaching you, how to be more valuable and influential. And I just don't subscribe to that, man. I think it's way more important. And I think at the end of the day, despite what the remaining ego that I have says and wants to be successful and wants to be wants to do a TED talk one day and wants to be a published poet and all this stuff that I dearly want, I can't at the end of the day sit here and tell you that it's more valuable to me than just being like a human being in this world that has good relationships with people and supports people and cares about people and is a part of, I don't want to think that strategically about how I deal with people, if that makes sense. I just want to flow and enjoy the company that I have. And yeah, man, I don't know, it's probably a bit of a problem for me, because I am good at sales and I am good at networking. And this is sort of my sweet spot. But I don't play the game the right way. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that's also why I'm good at it. But there's different ways to imprint value into the way people see you as well. Like it doesn't need to be from creating this bullshit idea you have a busy life, and the best way to be valuable is to be valuable, not to pretend you're valuable. The best way to be influential is to be influential and not pretend you're influential. And I don't want people to think I'm influential and valuable if I'm not. Like if I've got nothing to give or nothing to add, I don't want, like, it would be a waste of my time and your time for me to pretend that I have something that I'm not. Like, we're here speaking right now because we connected in an authentic way, and not because of any bullshit. And that would just, like, bullshit is a waste of time, man. I'm going to die one day. I got no time sitting here for an hour with someone trying to make them do something like that. I don't know. Like, I don't have time for that sort of interaction. It's not worth it. Like, we're only here once. I don't know.
I totally agree. Cause like over the last like 2 to 3 years, I've been like trying to figure it out where like I'm this person who's just like, you know, I'm always going to reply to everyone. Like I am a really busy person and I have priorities and I have much more valuable things to do, but I'm always replying to friends. I'm always giving value. I'm always like freaking triple texting with just like whatever value that I can offer. And people, it definitely goes the wrong way where now people think that, you know, they can freaking just call me at 9 and be like, hey, do you want to go get dinner now? And sometimes I might say yes because I'm free.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, I think the people who then sort of take advantage of it, I don't know how to like phrase this weird thing where I get this vibe where like all of a sudden they now think that at first there was like this level of respect, but since I've been so nice, now they think they're equal, and then that's fine. And then my sort of value keeps going down as I keep being nicer and nicer.
Yeah.
And then my answer to that has been like, okay, that's like a natural filter. I'm going to keep being me and it's going to naturally filter out all these people. But what stays is what's going to be like, I'm going to be able to attract the best of the best people just by doing what I do. And I'm going to definitely filter out a lot of the sort of, you know, they might make 6 figures, you know, multi 6 figures. And I might filter those people out, but I'm able to attract the best. And I want that.
That's your challenge. Your challenge when you decide to be really open with people, your challenge is then to decide which, like, because you'd probably filter out, I would say, like a large percentage of those people. Like we're talking, I would assume like somewhere like the 80%, you know, like you'd filter, like over time, 80% of people would sort of show you that they're not someone worth investing. Because that's like, the thing is, time is valuable, and time is actually the only thing that's valuable. It's the only thing you can't get back. Like it's the only thing that every single second, like every single unit of time you spend, you can't make it back. You can't get it again. And so it's really important that you spend it well. And I think when you are busy and when you have got a lot going on, it is important to get really laser focused on who and what you want to spend that time on. That's something that I'm much more focused on. In what do I like I said to you when we came on, I'm going to do a period of not drinking as well. And it's not because I don't like going out with friends and having fun, but at this stage in my life, it's not what I want to spend my time on. I want to get really laser focused on building whatever it is that I'm going to build. And focusing on the new job that I'm taking, and yeah, I have some things that I want to get to in the future, and the challenge for me at the moment is not to worry about the future too much, because that's probably part of what I've been worrying about, that I feel like I'm a long way away from how I want to be living and where I want to be, and trying to just keep it in the present moment and doing the things I need to do on a day-by-day basis to eventually get there. But it has been proving challenging, which is why I've had a couple of like stressful days, because I don't feel like I'm where I want to be at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely go through these periods where I'm like, am I sort of able to achieve the goals I'm setting? Should I get into this post, like, I can sort of just settle and just right now I'm doing pretty well, and just rather than worrying about scaling, just worry about just automating what I currently do and just settle, because that's so much easier. But then I'm always sort of, I have all these goals, and then I'm always thinking of them. I'm always wanting to make the most out of this one life I have, where I'm like, Like to get there, I have to be like, I'm behind. I'm behind on schedule if I want to get to where I want to be. And it adds this unnecessary sort of push, this unnecessary sort of urgency and scarcity where I'm like, is this what life is supposed to be? Is life supposed to be like you're constantly sprinting through our life to make the most out of it? But then if I sort of just take it chill and easy, yes, I'm probably going to live a pretty cool life, but I want to be the best. But then to be the best, life is going to feel shit. Or is there a way to strive to be the best, but be happy at the same time?
I mean, yes, I think there is, but I have not figured it out yet. So
I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to work on figuring it out. Another thing I've been doing is when I'm not happy, like people like the reaction I get is always like, dude, that's impossible. I want to work on figuring out how I can be happy or content or present every single day. Now, people are like, no, that's impossible. There's going to be ups and downs. But if I work on it, I'm going to get closer to what the peak is. And I think the people don't even like the fact that I'm trying to figure out how to be more happy every single day. That's a much better approach, and you're going to get closer to the answer to life is a bunch of ups and downs. That's impossible.
Okay, I've got a book recommendation for you for a start. It's called The Surrender Experiment by a guy named Mickey Singer. Closest explanation of how to strive to be the best that you can whilst being happy and content. Phenomenal book. I'm actually sort of I'm reading The Power of Now at the moment, but I've sort of been going through my second read through of The Surrender Experiment as well. And it's a story of a guy who, through kind of just going with the flow of life, became one of the first tech. Like he basically was the first person in like the 80s who delivered a tech solution to the medical industry that helped them, store patient data and stuff like that. At least in the 80s, it was like a $300 million company. And he started that company out of an ashram that he accidentally built without meaning to in the middle of the forests in Florida. And then he picked up a computer one day and realized that he loved it and started just learning how to code. Like he basically just lived on, he understood the concept of surrender, and he said, I will just do what life throws at me. What life gives me, he will use as his way of becoming spiritually enlightened. And I think that's the key, is that he turned his life into a vehicle for spiritual growth. But then through that spiritual growth, he was just naturally good at business, and he was just naturally good at certain things that he then snaked his way through this $300 million company. It's really, and then from there, nearly loses it all. And it's a really, really powerful story. And
I'll read it. No spoilers.
No. I'll leave it there. But it's really good. And I think that the second thing that I thought of is the idea of wanting to be the best versus the idea of wanting to fulfill your potential. There's a difference, because best is competition with other people, and therefore it puts an external pressure on it. Fulfilling your potential can be still a pressure, but if you make it clear that like fulfilling your potential is also about being happy and slowing down a little bit sometimes, like that when you're fulfilling your potential, you get to define what that looks like. Whereas to be the best, already by saying you're the best, you're comparing what best is to something outside of yourself. So keeping it really internally guided and saying you want to fulfill your potential, it allows you to decide what that is. And part of that is going to be being happy. Part of that is going to be slowing down, smelling the roses a little bit. So it's that with a combination of the stuff I talked about before, which is sort of realizing that you don't, like, once you sort of set, okay, this is what my potential for the next 12 months looks like. This is where I want to be in 5 years or 10 years. Set that goal, reverse engineer it down to what you can do each and every day to get there, and then just do it. And don't think about the end goal. The more you think about that end goal, the more you're projecting future onto your present. So, like, set the goal, move back through, get to what you need to do that day, do it with full presence. And, like, theoretically, like, that should make you happy. But I know the theory here, but it is in practice harder to sort of do, because it's so hard to not worry about the future. It's so hard to not want to pull yourself forward. It feels like sometimes you need that. You need the fear of failure to push you forward, instead of the, climbing up through, like, the inspiration of success, or like being yourself or something like that.
And then the two things that came to mind when you said that, man, we could talk for hours. The first thing was, you're right. Like, if I were to surrender, like, I already have all the tools and resources in my mind where all the problems I'm going through, I can solve them pretty quickly. But it's the fact that I'm not surrendering, the fact that I am trying to control my life, the fact that I am going through the ups and downs. And if all that was gone and I just surrendered to life, I'd be able to just knock every single problem down, like, with ease. And I'll be able to just, like, reach my fullest potential really, really quickly. So that's definitely something I need to work on, surrendering.
That book.
Yeah.
Read it.
And then the second thing was, I think I need to work on sort of my why and my ego and figure that out, because, like, I don't know why. Like, why do I want to be the best? Well, I guess I want to make the most out of my one life. But then, as you're right, like, being the best means you're being better than other people, and that adds in competition. But if I'm wanting to just make the most out of the one life I have, that should not matter.
It's very different. Being the best and making the most out of your one life, they are very, like, you're saying that for you to make the most out of your one life, you have to be the best. But maybe that's not what your best life looks like, because your best life, if that is to be the best, then you're going to have to get very tunnel vision for a long time about one thing to be able to be the best at it. And you've got to ignore a lot of other different things, which means you're probably not going to live your best life, because you've just been too, like, okay, like, you could maybe earn 10 million. Let's say you can earn $10 million a year by being the best at what you do. What if you could earn $1 million a year by being in the top 2%? And not putting in that extra 10 hours a week, or, like, whatever that looks like. The difference between the best and very, very good gives you the work life. Like, it's about designing your life. Like, it's not like, I don't need to put figures in your head or anything like that, because 1 to 10 million sounds like a big difference. Like, but it's about designing your life and being really intentional about all the things you want, living your life to its fullest potential and being the best. Like, I just think it's important to say two very different things.
I don't know if it's ego where, like, 10 million a year, like, if that's what I ended up with, I would be like, oh man, like, that's, well, in my eyes, like, that's like, that I could have done so much more. There's people that are billionaires, 10 million.
Exactly.
But then, okay, if I go down that route, it's like, the only reason why I'd like to do 10 million is then I'll be able to, like, freaking get private jets, fly to cool places, jump on helicopters, meet awesome people, and travel the world. There's no need to make more than 10 million in that case, if that's what I want. But then I also know that when I travel, after 7 days straight, I sort of crave to get back into business and start building something up. So maybe and answering what you talked about, surrender, maybe the answer is figuring out a balance where I am traveling and doing what I love, but then that brings me back to wanting to build this business that I want to build, but I'll be in a much more surrendered state where I'll be able to build that business really, really fast. And who knows, I might end up being a multi-billionaire by the time I'm 90, just because, and I'm doing both. Yeah, I don't know, like it's cool. Like I'm getting closer to figuring out the answer with this conversation. So I really appreciate it, Mike.
Surrender, and the beautiful but scary thing about surrender is that you have to be okay with it. Like when you surrender, you're surrendering to the idea that you're surrendering such that you can live your life to the fullest potential. But you have to be ready to say, you know what? If I make $1 or if I make $2 billion, I surrender. But then it's like the belief and the knowledge that like if you do surrender, if you let life guide you, you're not going to get led astray. And that's not because the universe is out for, like, that's not like some woo-woo thing. It's just that when you surrender and you live in life's flow, you're going with the current. And when you go with the current and you've got your skills and your talents and you're putting your skills, talents, and personality towards something that is in the same flow as where life seems to be directing you, you're going to do 10x of what you were going to do trying to fight the current. You know, so that's something I'm thinking about at the moment. I've got this little like poetry thing that I'm doing, and it's like, it's not working. I can try a few different things, and yes, I think it's worth trying a few different things. But at the end of the day, if it's not working, just because it's my little baby and it's this new thing that I'm trying to do, it doesn't mean I should beat a stick over my head trying to make it work if it's not going to work. Like, no, like sometimes pivot, like find like the pivot where like life is gushing along with you and just go with it, you know, and then just let go. Like once you're in life's flow, as long as you apply yourself, this guy told me one day, like 10 years ago, he said, there's 3 rules to life, Michael. First, turn up. Second, do your best. 3, let go of the outcome. Life in 3 steps. It literally is life in 3 steps. Like turn up. So show up, get out of bed, put yourself in positions to have opportunities happen. Second, do your best. Apply yourself to the best of your possible, the best you can possibly can. Educate yourself. Do the best work you can. Put like 100% effort into everything that you do. Be nice to people. Like turn up in every way you can. 3, let go of the outcome. Let go of what you can't control. Like, and letting go is the part that puts you in life's flow. But the turning up and doing your best is what allows you to go with life's flow and really like push it through. I couldn't believe it when he said it. It's like, turn up, do your best, let go of the out. It's literally life in 10 words. I couldn't believe it.
Man, that made so much sense. Like, because I've been really getting close to, like, I've been on that journey of figuring out who I am as a person and just leaning into myself, what I like to do, what I don't like to do. What state allows me to not lose the most amount of energy, and I'm trying to be my unique individual self, the 1 in 8 billion. And what I haven't been thinking until talking to you is maybe I also need to find out my unique path, my unique life's journey. Because this whole time I've been sort of fighting and trying to jump on different currents because I want to sort of be like Elon Musk. And it's weird because I know that I should not try to be funny. I should not try to be cool. Like I should not try to be like Paul Walker, Leonardo DiCaprio, Timothy Chalamet. Like they're cool because they're themselves, and if I try to take on their sort of charming qualities, I'm just going to burn out. I'm just going to get exhausted. And if I just keep being me, I'm going to sort of become my own. I'm going to become Andy Mine.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought of that with my life's journey, and it's ironic that I've been trying to have this cool, crazy Elon Musk type lifestyle despite me trying to figure out myself. So I think figuring out myself and figuring out my life's journey, that's something now I'm like, wow, this is something I need to figure out thanks to you.
I don't know. Like, it doesn't mean you're never going to have never going to have the rock star lifestyle. It doesn't mean you're never going to be this or never going to be that. It just means that you're going to be you, and the life that you the life that you weave yourself, like for yourself over time, is going to be your life, and it's going to be what makes you happiest, because how could it not be? Because you and your most authentic self have built it, you know?
I think what I just sort of came to realize is going with the flow on a small current, but it's your own current, is much, much better than trying to jump into a different current that's much faster, much bigger. And all of a sudden you're like never in sync with the current and you're constantly getting exhausted. Yes, you might be able to go further and have this more, make more money and have more cool things and have more cool experiences, but you're just constantly tired.
Yeah. Yeah. But maybe also, if the current is going the same way you want to go, but it's a bit too quick for you, maybe the answer is, okay, I'm going to jump on that current for 6 months or 2 weeks to do a sprint, and then I'm going to jump back off. The problem is that people jump on that really fast current. They get over-identified with the ego of wanting more, and then they can't get off, and then they burn out. So it's like, yeah, like jump on that current. Or like maybe you're on your own current, just get an oar, start rowing faster. Like you've got the decision and the choice to like push harder if you want to. But knowing who you are first is really important, and why you're doing it and why you're getting onto the currents. And it's really important to know that, like, and to also understand when you're going against the current is really, really important. Like life, it's important to feel like you're in a flow with life. So for instance, my argument to you would be that if you feel like you're overworking yourself and you can't stop and you're going really, really hard and you're getting really tired, and it's starting to burn you out, my thing would be that maybe what you're trying to do that with might not be something that totally aligns with your values. Because if you wake up every day and you're doing something that aligns with your values, as long as you're not working like, you know, stupid 15-hour days, like you shouldn't, like that purpose-driven, the why should keep you kind of going. And maybe some days it won't. Like that's listening to your body and understanding 15-hour days, like 50, I don't know, man. I've done 20-hour days before, weeks and weeks straight, and I don't know how I did it. I feel like I'm getting old, but I don't know how I did it. But yeah, it's really about understanding who you are and what you want, and then tailoring your life towards that, and then remembering to just surrender and let life kind of do its thing a little bit too.
And hopefully I'm just going to be optimistic. Hopefully if I'm able to truly surrender and stay on my own path and do it at like a sustainable rate, and really just be that unique, like this is my own current, it would lead to be a really fruitful life, and I would not be shocked to have ended up being one of the most successful people in the world. Now, I hate saying that because it just sounds so egotistical.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I have to surrender and be like, okay, if I really truly surrender, I should not be thinking about the outcome. I should not be like, if that doesn't happen, that's okay. And that's a bit harder to admit. Like it is harder for me to surrender, to think that, okay, all these goals I've set out might not happen if I surrender.
It is for you now. What you'll find though is if you truly practice, like you could literally say, I'm going to surrender, start meditating, realize that actually what you want to do is go and live in India in an ashram for 3 years and like get really enlightened. Like somewhere along that process of surrender, you'll realize that you've already got the greatest gift. And actually all of this stuff doesn't matter as much as you think it does. But it's okay that you still feel like that, because you've only just come up with this concept in your head. Like there's a lot of kind of work. So I would call this spiritual work, to be honest with you. There's a lot of spiritual work to be done to get to a point where, I mean, I've been meditating for a long time and I still get caught up in, I've literally the last 2 days, I've been in a really bad headspace because I don't feel like my material life is going where I want it to go right now. And that is challenging for me, like, because I want to get to some place as well. But what I've realized since, like, I spoke to a couple of people, like in my spiritual circles yesterday, what I've realized is that actually the answer to what I'm going through right now is just to let go, and is just to surrender and reprioritize my spiritual life. Because as soon as I do that, as soon as I make my spiritual life my priority, everything else just seems to fall into place, and I just become happier. And at the end of the day, once you truly feel happy and you realize that your happiness is not coming from how much money you're making or being the best or this and that, you actually realize that being, like, once you really have that real happiness and you realize you haven't had to do anything for it, can you picture the freedom that's in that? Life becomes a game, man. It becomes a game because you're already happy. Like, you've already, like, when I'm in that real spiritual flow, nothing anyone or anything can take that away. Yeah, things can take it away, but when I sit in that core, nothing outside of me is worth even like a dime to like what I have in here. And so, like, everything's pennies on the dollar compared to what I have in here. So it makes life feel like a game because it doesn't really matter what happens out here. I can go and become a comedian. I can write all I want. Like, it honestly just, sometimes I feel like I should just like pack a bag and just start walking. Who knows where I end up, and just make life just a total adventure and not worry about the money and worry about being anyone. Because at the end of the day, like, what I have in here is everything else pales in comparison. And when you get to that point and you realize that, it doesn't mean you need to stop doing anything. It doesn't mean you need to stop building your business and stuff. It just means you're building your businesses to have fun. You're doing whatever in your life is fun rather than what you feel like you need to do to be happy. You know, does that make sense?
Totally does. And I just, so another light bulb moment I just had, which is crazy, I'm having so many light bulb moments, is that I was listening to Tim Ferriss, and he talks about how meditation, people always, their mind wanders. But that's actually a good thing, because every time your mind wanders and you bring it back to center, that's when a repetition occurs.
Exactly.
And people think, okay, the length of me staying present is the repetition. No, it's the opposite. It's the amount of time you're pulling back to the present. And then, so what you just went through over the last 2-3 days where your life got out of balance, but you've been able to realign it back to your spiritual self, that's a repetition that just occurred.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm noticing.
Wow, that's a light bulb for me too. Nice, man. Love it.
And then I'm noticing through this journey, my downs are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And I haven't been embracing the downs and seeing it as a repetition. But I do notice that it gets shorter and shorter because I come up with systems. Every time I have, for example, yesterday, I didn't get much done. And then I wrote down, okay, apply my preventions. So I woke up this morning, I uninstalled any social medias I reinstalled on my phone, put on my sort of blockers, reminded myself that I should go ahead and take the breaks as scheduled. I should not bring my phone into the shower at night because then I'll end up using it after I shower and bring it into my bed. So I'm applying all these things that I've known that taken me off path. So now I'm able to realign at a much faster pace. And it's only going to get faster and faster. Just like meditation, you're going to be able to pull yourself back to center more and more often. And it's going to be easier and easier. And you're going to be out of focus for shorter and shorter and shorter.
Exactly. I mean, I love the idea of the repetition. I like the Tim Ferriss thing. I mean, that's the quintessential, I think, way to explain meditation to someone who is new to it, is explaining that all you need to do is whenever you're thinking and then you realize you're thinking and bring yourself back, that's one bicep curl. That's one mental bicep curl. And then people go, oh, wait, okay. So the point isn't to like not think, it's to just catch myself thinking as many times as possible. And you're like, yeah. And then what happens is over that process, over 3 or 4 weeks of doing that, you realize that slowly you're catching yourself more and more, but then there becomes this inflection point where you stop catching yourself thinking more because you've actually stopped thinking as much. And like that whole process of being more and more present and catching yourself more and more has actually naturally stopped the process of thought happening so frequently. And so it's like kind of this weird bell curve where it's like you catch yourself thinking so much, and then all of a sudden it starts dropping off. Anyway, that was just a random thing. I loved the way that you took that and made it the repetition of remembering to surrender, because that's essentially what you said. It was like every time you realize you're getting caught up in your materialistic stuff or your non-spiritual ego stuff, it's like, boom, repetition, bring yourself back. Like that's something that I'm going to start to implement, because I never thought of the idea of surrender like the idea of catching yourself thinking. It's like catching yourself in ego and then going, whoop, come back. That's pretty cool. I love that. Oh, that was awesome. That just blew my mind, man.
And I didn't think of that until just talking to you. So thanks to you, you've sort of lit it up on my brain.
It's all good.
But yeah, this has been like an amazing conversation, Mike. I really appreciate just talking to you over the last hour. Hopefully other people appreciate this conversation. As we went deeper, I was like, okay, for sure, I definitely want to use this. And yeah, I really appreciate your insight.
I absolutely love this chat, Andy. Like, thanks for, I don't know, like this was, for everyone listening, this was like still listening, well done. This was supposed to be a chat about e-commerce. And then we just started talking about meditation. We're like, let's record this. This is totally impromptu. I love it. I had a great time. That was great. See you for lunch soon, bro.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, let me know. I'll drop Mike's details in the description below. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, guys. Peace
out, guys.